Hello Reshaper, I hope you're fantastic. In this stream, I want to share with you how I learned 7 languages. 7. Okay? So, without further ado, let's jump in. First things first, you can go into my YouTube channel, pogodora, to watch myself in 4K. If you want so, I'm more than welcome. So, let's jump to today's theme. And by the way, what I actually want to tell it today, because some people has reached out and asked myself, hey Alex, how you mentioned to learn so many languages and why you currently learn Korean. I mean, the Korean thing I cannot really explain because it's really fun. I used to have used to do taekwondo back in the day, so Korean is not that unfamiliar for myself, and as I also speak pretty fluent Japanese, for myself Korean is not that hard because many words and also the grammar is pretty much the same. It's not like 100% the same. It's of course a different language. It has a different alphabet, but the alphabet's not that hard at all. So let's get back to the other languages, to the 7 languages that I have actually learned. So the first language that I have learned, of course, is Russian. Why Russian? Because I'm born in Russia. Yeah, not many people know it because I'm not really talking with a Russian accent. Yeah, I mean, it sounds weird when I start off to talk with such an accent. However, basically, yeah, I'm born in Russia, okay, and I'm still talking Russian to my own parents till this day, and yeah, to my relatives, to some people. It's the most used language in my daily life, let me say so. And next one is yeah, and by the way, Russian I haven't learned in school. I mean, I learned it kind of at school because I was there for 1 month, and believe me, I know nothing about Russian grammar. You can tell me a lot about, but I know nothing. I just know, does it sound right for me or not, because of my own intuition. I more talking and writing or in reading Russian just with my intuition rather than with my own consciousness. Okay? With my conscious intuition rather than with my consciousness that is based on based on learned material, basically. Okay? So, but what I have learned is German. I have learned from 0 till now, till being fluent actually in German. Why? Because I'm living in Germany, and beside of my own home, I'm basically have to, even maybe I don't want to, but I have to communicate German when I'm out of my house, talking to someone, doing phone calls, something like that. So I was more or less forced to learn it, even maybe I don't want it, but I was more or less forced. Now we have English. You know, back in the days I wasn't that fluent in English. We have learned English, and other than like Japanese learning style, when you are learning another language in Germany, you are more focused on the speech, which is we have luck in Germany that we are most focused on speech rather than like in countries like Japan. They are more focused on the grammar and all the vocabulary. So I have thousands of vocabulary. I know some Japanese people know thousands of vocabularies. They can just bombard you with vocabulary, but the thing is they don't know how to use it in the right way, because there's some vocabulary also in Japanese that you can use in certain situations, same goes for English, that are not appropriate for another situation. So it is really important for when you try to learn a language, not just to pick up the vocabulary, but also pick up the occasion where you can apply grammatically and also from the whole contents, from the context, the right way, this kind of vocabulary or this kind of words or this kind of proverbs and stuff like that, right? So this is really important thing to know the occasion where you can apply it, because mostly when some Japanese people are talking to me with some words, they really do not know where to apply this kind of English words in what kind of occasion, so it just sounds weird. Okay. So English is my third language. The fourth language is not silent languages, but actually Japanese, because I myself have started off from the middle school to learn by myself. My mom has said, okay, cool, you really want to learn Japanese? Yeah, I want. They bought me a book, and I started off with hiragana, katakana. I learned within a week and stuff like that. And then I started off, watching Japanese shows and stuff like that. Of course, I was a little bit into anime when I was a kid, but then I kind of said, okay, anime is kind of dasai. It was kind of this kind of era with, there were maybe still some garu, some, this kind of really extravagant dressed Japanese girls with tons of makeup, which is totally the opposite, which the normal traditional standard for Japanese women is. And this kind of geek stuff was still a little bit more like, not really banished, but it was still like ew, and kind of disgusted by the most part of society. So I just giving up on animes and stuff like that, and just say, okay, I have to do something different and see more into real life Japanese, more real life. And I started off picking up Japanese dramas and Japanese variety shows where some comedians are joking around and stuff like that, or sometimes they are just jerks. but I didn't know till I came to Japan that most things are actually scripted. Yeah, the most shows are scripted. The most jokes are also scripted. But there are some comedians who are like Sama-san. They are actually working without any scripts, but that's really rare. Just maybe few of the whole entertainment industry in Japan, maybe 2-3 people, maybe when it comes down, maybe 10 people are working without scripts. But all other entertainers, they have big, large scripts. Okay. So my first one was actually Japanese, and Japanese, and then I started off also like for several months or maybe for a year. I have learned myself, and then I went into the school, like Japanese class privately. My mom has paid like $100 something in a year or in half a year, something like that. It was pretty expensive, but we had a Japanese teacher, and I could take this opportunity and talk to her in the class, which was pretty valuable for myself back in the days. Maybe once a week I can talk real Japanese to a real Japanese person. It was really a big thing to myself, but not that big that I become fluent. You cannot become fluent by talking once in a week with someone in a language. It is, some people can do it, but not the majority, I believe. So what happened is, how did I become fluent? Because this kind of how they are, it's not a bad class, but it's really, really slow class. It's really slow as class. Because there are people, there are some in this class, there are many students or people who are doing their jobs and they don't have time to learn Japanese. They're just doing like as a fun. And because of it, it was more like really tedious thing. Not tedious, but really long thing. And after 8 years, it just got to N3. So, and I said, no, man, it's too slow for me. I want to go faster. I want to acquire really this language. And what I did, one day, one guy has introduced me to one book. It calls like Learning Kanji, something like that. Remembering the kanji, I believe. Yeah, it is basically, it is a Bible of all Japanese learners, because it introduces a method where you can get out of the normal road. Because normally when you learn Japanese, everyone says like, hey, you have the kanji, you have to write it 100 times and you know it. And this is also why how they are learning in at school in Japan about of this kind of Heisig. It's a English, and it's also in German, the Heisig method. In Germany it's the Heisig method, but here it's like this. I mean it's Heisig method also in English. So basically, this kind of book I have learned to do one thing. I do apologize, I have itchy nose. And this thing is to remember the kanji by stories. I have to imagine the thing. I have to imagine the story, use more my imagination, and put more my own feelings inside of it, and then from this kind of thing, remember the story and get the data off. And this is what I started off, and after a year, something like that, I was on level on N2 already, and several months later I was already in N1, and I started off, okay, come on, let's do the first N1 test, and I failed. I by the way, I got my N1 just for the first time. But first I failed, I had like maybe 10 points missing, something like that. And everyone, whoa, my teacher, whoa, holy crap, man, how you did it? And I said, yeah, I started off with this book and other thing. And now, before we go a little bit deeper into Japanese, because I will tell you what kind of methods I use to acquire really good Japanese or decent Japanese, before I want to tell what kind of other languages, because we're just at the fourth language, right? What are the other three? The other three is I have learned in the other middle school, because we have like 3 middle schools in Germany, and I first of all went to the lowest one, and then I go to the middle one. To the middle one, you have to you have to choose another language beside English, so the second foreign language. And I have chosen French because I like French, because back in the days all the aristocrats used to speak French. It was a normal thing, and I said, okay, French, let's do it. And it was pretty cool. I had also a tutor there in French. I'm honest, I had a tutor, but my remarks were also really good in French. I love really French. I like French. And in the high school, I was forced to take Spanish because nobody wanted to have French, but I needed a second language, so it was a third language for me technically. But in real it was already my 6th language. Yeah. And for myself, I kind of messed up like French and Spanish pretty often. Like the spelling, I was more used to French spelling, and I had kind of those things in tests like, hey, I know the words, but I'm writing it with the French spelling because it's the same word in French. And they said like, hey, we're here in Spanish with a smiley, not in French. And she just deleted some of this, crossed out some of this words, some of this what's called? God, I have this word. This is what happens sometimes to me. I know the word in Japanese immediately, but not in English. Holy crap. I mean, I know the spelling in French, but every time I did the written vocabulary test in Spanish, but wrote the English, the French spelling, my teacher also said like, she crossed out some of the characters basically. She crossed out some of the characters and said like, hey, this is not, and just written with a smiley, this is Spanish, not French. Yeah. And it was okay though. But then she got ill, and for half a year, and everyone just started to hate Spanish because nobody did anything in Spanish, and everyone starts to hate Spanish, and it just went the whole thing Boom. Now I'm not talking Spanish, but I can understand kind of Spanish. Sometimes I'll speak Spanish when someone tries to speak to myself Spanish. Um, because the pronunciation is quite easy in Spanish. Um, French pronunciation is also not that hard because I learned it. Yeah. And in Japan, basically, my seventh language is in Japan, where I have told already this story like several times that I didn't have much money, so I went to the most inexpensive option for myself to the school where the major was Chinese, and I learned Chinese, which was okay for 1.5 years. Yeah, but it was like we more like learned like, hey, we have to learn the whole freaking book. We have to memorize everything. And I always thought to myself, my brain is not a freaking hard disk, you know. It's not an SSD. Maybe an M.2. I'm just kidding. Okay, now what I want to tell you is basically these are my 7 languages, but I want to go into depth how I actually acquired the speech of Japanese. First, of course, I got my teacher. Once in a week I could talk, but not every single week because we had also some like things like vacation, stuff like that. So it wasn't always possible, and you cannot really get fluent from talking to someone for maybe 10 minutes every single week once. It is a little impossible. So what I did instead of, first step, and everyone can do it. No matter what kind of language you would try to acquire, maybe Japanese if you're a weep, welcome to the weep word. If you want to acquire English, same thing, or other languages, same thing, like French, German, Russian, I don't care, Chinese, maybe some African languages. I mean, in several years, Africa will just kill it. African nations will just kill it. And what I just want to tell you is, first of all, you have to like jump above your shadow and say one thing. You have to start to talk to yourself actively. And some people say like, yeah, if you are talking to yourself, you have a mental disorder. But let me tell you one thing, that the most genius people in this world, like Einstein and stuff like that, they talk to themselves every single time. Now what are you talking? So talk to yourself in this language. Try to talk to yourself in this language, and really actively. Not just but talking to myself in my brain when I'm thinking. This is also good. Try to think in this language. But additionally, also talk to yourself in this language. And the more you're doing, for myself, in my case, when I used to do it every single day, like talking to myself in Japanese and stuff like that, what happened is I end up dreaming in Japanese. Just imagine, dreaming in this language that you are currently acquiring. Okay? This is the first step. Start to talk to yourself. Now, when you want to go to the hard mode or to the harder mode, immerse yourself in this language. Immerse yourself in this language. Make your environment so that you can immerse yourself in this language. In my case, I have learned Japanese by reading Japanese books. I started off with manga, if everyone. Then I started off with small articles on the internet like Asahi Shimbun, really easy. And then I started off like Yomiuri Shimbun, and then I graduated to Nikkei, like the economic letter, a newspaper, and then I started off to read straight up novels, really novels in Japan, not just like things, but really novels. Like Natsume Soseki. Natsume Soseki was a bit too hard, but like before Natsume Soseki, I read like Hoshinogo and stuff like that, like really big novelists in Japan. Um, it was pretty cool. I've just read maybe one or two novels just to kind of get into this, but what I did also additionally, not just reading. Reading is actually when you have fun to read and you can read, right? If you don't want to read, nobody's forcing you basically. What you can also do is, of course, you can get into some, you have some apps right now where you can teach someone English or your own language in exchange of teach this language that you want to acquire, for example Japanese. And then you can also maybe make friends in this kind of thing. And I got 2 or 3 people from those kind of actions, from those kind of places. I got 2 or 3 people who are speaking Japanese and I could actually talk to them. Some are for free, you have to make up, but nowadays nothing is really for free. Sometimes you have just a trial, but it's not really that expensive. If you cannot afford it at all, then just immerse yourself in this kind of atmosphere. So you are reading, well in my case I read Japanese books, I listened to Japanese music. Back in the days I had an own car and I listened just to Japanese music in this car. First I was into Visual K, like to really aggressive rock, slash metal, slash gothic, slash alternative thing, mixed with some jazzy stuff and some EDM. However, then I got a little bit more into the major things, like I started to watch Japanese shows, Japanese movies, Japanese dramas. Like Korean dramas are pretty popular right now, but back in the days I watched Japanese dramas like Hanayori Dango and stuff like that. Same you can do also if you're learning like English, you can do like watching Friends and stuff like that, where more like real life conversations are happening. Like in anime, if you just watch anime, for example, if you're learning Japanese, it's not really real life. Some of them have real life conversations, yes, but most of them they are using sometimes really awkward Japanese, which is not applicable towards real life situations. So to learn those kind of stuff, you have to instead of watching movies, I watch really tons of dramas. Every single day I watch at least one episode for the drama, which is at least 40 minutes. And also learn stuff. Of course, I have written things in Japanese, so I can write the kanji and stuff like that on my tablet. Just maybe one time, something like that, just went over the vocabulary sometimes. But the thing is not really to learn vocabulary or learn the thing, and we'll talk about a bit later what I'm talking about. But basically, immersing yourself in this kind of atmosphere. So you cannot afford to be in this country, but you have to make your environment like you are in this country. By going on the internet, looking out for videos, looking out for music and stuff like that. Enjoy this culture, basically. Enjoy the culture. And Japanese is really easy to enjoy because you have so many things to enjoy there, right? Maybe because it's so, it's so huge. Japanese culture is so huge compared to other cultures. It is easy to find something that you can really enjoy from the bottom of your heart. You can really have fun. And it's a really important thing to have fun. Now, this is a second thing. Now, the third thing is my own thing that I have discovered, and I've learned it from Japanese comedy shows, from Japanese comedians. It is when you interrupt something. Someone is talking, like jerking around, and you just tell something, hey, it's not so. Something like that, right? It's called tsukomi. in Japanese, tsukomi. You have boke and tsukomi. It's like manzai when two people are talking. The one guy is talking crap and the other is always interrupting him. So this is Japanese comedy, and I've learned it. And it started off when I watch a show, watching something, and someone is happening weird. I directly do tsukomi to this situation because, hey, it's not so, man. It's not so. Are you kidding me and stuff like that, right? And I just make this kind of things. And I talk it really, not just that I did it when I'm alone in my own room, and I really pronounce it. It's not just like to think about it, but really use your mouth. Why using your mouth? Because the more you're doing, the more you're talking to yourself, the more you use your mouth. The more you use your mouth, the more you hear your own your own pronunciation. The more you hear pronunciation, the more you can, when you are watching videos and stuff like that, and movies, stuff like that, you can hear how people pronounce and already try to adjust your own pronunciation to this pronunciation of this actor, of this actress, of the announcer, and other people, because they are doing it the right way. Okay, so when you really listen to yourself, okay, this is my pronunciation, and what is this pronunciation? Okay, so I have to a little bit adjust here and here. And this is really important, that you are not just thinking about the things that you are actually trying to express, but also expressing it with your own words loud. Now, these are actually three things. Basically, first of all, start to talk to yourself. Second one, immerse yourself inside of the culture. And third one is do tsukomi. Now we come to the learning stuff. How do you want to learn things? How do you want to learn things? Most people are learning, as I said, writing down all these kanjis every single day, and sometimes it will happen that you remember it. As I told you before, from a spiritual point of view, you are actually just messing up your own mental space. It should be actually empty. So now comes the question. How you can keep the space empty, the mental space empty, from the redundant information. Sorry, I cannot understand what you're talking about. What kind of language is it? Sorry, I don't know. It's not French, it's not Spanish, it's not Japanese, it's not Chinese, it's not Russian, it's not German, it's not English. So, sorry. And it's not Korean that I'm trying to acquire right now, but I'm not doing it that actively as I did it with Japanese. I'm just doing it like a hobby. If I have time, just going through the vocabulary and stuff like that. So what I want to tell you is how you can acquire the knowledge, how you can get information without overloading your mental space. It's Bangladesh, love language. Okay, cool. Bangladesh. Awesome. Pretty easy. As I told you, people are not remembering data. Data you can give it to a freaking hard disk, to a freaking SSD, or the fastest one, M.2, if you're into IT stuff. However, people are remembering things with feelings. You have your 5 feelings, you have your 5 senses, and you remember with it. If you remember like the smell of an orange and something like that, immediately some often story will pop up in your brain. Or a kind of imagination, or a kind of an occasion will pop up in your brain. And this data will just come afterwards. So your brain is still empty, but you know the data. So the key point is to remembering things like languages is not to sitting there and just repeat it over and over again. Same goes for spaced repetition. It's not the key. It might be the key, but your mental space is just overloaded. And you know what happened when it's overloaded? I have told you before. So instead of those kind of things, what you should do is every time, okay, I want to acquire this language. I see this new word. I want to acquire it. Okay, how I'm doing it. Okay, you can do your research, what this word is, or in what kind of occasion this kind of word is used. But more important is, when you done this research, you don't remember it, but what you do, you see this word and try to put it in an occasion, put it in a situation, indulge with it with your own imagination. You have to kind of see it with your imagination. Okay, this is this word. Okay, awesome. So this is the imagination. This is a kind of this occasion that I am imagining with it. And now, when you see it, try to feel what kind of feelings will pop up. What kind of feelings will pop up if you see it? And try to make these feelings even be a little bit more intense. And when you make the feeling more intense, this is where it makes click. This is where the next time you want to see this word, you don't know this word, you don't know the occasion, however, you know this feeling. And you have this feeling, and this feeling will transfer you into the occasion, into the situation you have imagined, and this kind of imaginary situation will give you all this information around this word. Boom! Pretty easy, right? And I know some people is talking about like, okay, you have like the speed reading thing, and you have like this freaking cupboard, and in this cupboard you have many shelves, and you put this kind of information on this shelf, this on this shelf, this on this shelf. You have to order everything, and then you can. It becomes just too convoluted and too confusing. You don't need it at all. What you need instead of is just what I told you. You have information here that you want to remember. But you don't need to remember it, you have to see it. You have to see it as a freaking occasion, as a story. Okay? As an, wait. As, again. Sometimes my Japanese is better than my English. Yeah, see it as a, yeah, see it as a phenomenon. Phenomenon. See it as an occasion. See it as an occasion. See it as an occasion. See it as a story. See it as something is happening there. Because people are remembering stories. They are remembering movement when something is really actually happening. When they're moving something. It is really hard for the human brain to remember something that is dead. What I mean by that is not moving at all. There's no movement involved. It's really hard. But it can remember this movement. But what's even more important than remembering this movement is to remembering the feeling. Because when you remember the feeling with it, you can totally have the correspondence to the movement, to the story, and from the story to the whole information. So you don't need to remember anything in your life when you follow this simple principle. How was it? This is how I learned 7 languages. It is not about, and I just recognized it when I started to learn Japanese. Really in this moment, like, hey, my brain is not a freaking hard disk. This is how you do it. This is the way. So, and that doesn't matter. It is a language, or is it some numbers? Is it some, I don't know, some data, other data from someone? You can't remember anything. Just follow the simple pattern that I've just told you. When it comes to languages, again, the 3 steps. When it comes to remembering, the last step that I've just told you really excessively. So Reshaper, I hope you have an awesome day. Comment, box down below what's not my finger picked up so far. Massive shout out to Tanvir, Ahmed, Jason, 2 people on YouTube. We have also some people, not many of Instagram. Okay, so yeah. And by the way, if you want to have like the shortcut of the whole video because you say, oh man, too much information, I cannot keep it up. What are you talking about? I have to write it something. I got you covered. I haven't uploaded it yet, but today I will upload a video on TikTok. It will be like 1 to 3 minutes, because currently you can also upload 3 minutes video on TikTok, which is pretty good because you can put a little bit more information inside of it. So if you want to see the whole thing in a short format from 1 to 3 minutes, I got you covered. Just go on my TikTok. It's not right now uploaded. I have to actually edit this whole thing. So in my TikTok, you can find basically, you have just 2 people on YouTube. Just go into my own, I mean, maybe some profile, not really profile, but if you go to the normal video, not as a live stream, but a normal video, you can find there in the description. There's somewhere in the bottom, you can find a TikTok link. People on Facebook, Instagram, just go into my own profile. You can find my own link on my website. Go the whole thing down. Like at the bottom, you can find on my TikTok, or you can just go SPS, I believe SP Alex, something like that, 98. So basically, you can find myself there as well. So I hope you have an awesome day. And as always, do not lie to yourself. Super now. See you. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe on Monday. On Monday, yeah, Monday, because tomorrow and day after tomorrow I have 2 big seminars. See you on Monday.